Singapore is one of the smallest countries in Asia, but its waters are some of the busiest on Earth. Every year, around 140,000 vessels call at the port, linking Singapore to hundreds of ports worldwide. For decades, this small island survived by turning location into power. It had little land, no large natural resources, and no huge domestic market. However, it lies on one of the most important maritime routes between East and West. This story is about Tuas Port, a massive project covering about 1,337 hectares of land, with 66 planned berths, and the capacity to handle 65 million standard container units a year when completed. But why would Singapore spend billions of dollars building one of the most advanced ports on Earth? Singapore's story has always been tied to ships. Long before the skyline became famous, vessels were already gathering around its coast. The island sits near the southern entrance of the Strait of Malacca, where ships moving between the Indian Ocean, the South China Sea, and the Pacific have to pass. In 1819, the British set up a trading post in Singapore. Then, in 1869, the Suez Canal opened and shortened the journey between Europe and Asia. What did that mean for Singapore? This made Singapore more important because ships now had a faster route between the two sides of the world. This change influenced Singapore's total trade, which rose from $39 million before the canal opened to $71 million in 1870. Now comes the heart of the video, because that early advantage would later become the foundation of Singapore's survival strategy. After independence in 1965, Singapore had few easy choices. It could not depend on oil, agriculture, or a large internal market. So it built its economy around moving ships, cargo, fuel, and logistics. The port became the center of that strategy. A container could leave China, stop in Singapore, and then continue to Africa. Another could come from Europe, pause in Singapore, and move onward to Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, or Australia. This is called transshipment, and it became one of Singapore's strongest maritime roles. And from there, Singapore's gamble on the sea began to pay off. By 2024, Singapore handled a record 41.12 million container units, and around 90% of its container throughput was transshipment cargo. This kept Singapore as the world's largest container transshipment hub. But success created pressure. The old port system was spread across several terminals, including Tanjong Pagar, Keppel, Brani, and Pasir Panjang. Those terminals helped Singapore grow, but they were built for another era. Ships became larger, cargo volumes increased, ports around Asia became more competitive, and central waterfront land became too valuable to remain locked under container yards forever. That is why Tuas was put into action. On the western edge of Singapore, the country began building a new port from reclaimed land. Singapore's port problem did not come from failure. It came from growth. A port can be busy and still be vulnerable. If ships become larger, the port needs deeper berths. If trade increases, it needs more yard space. If shipping lines demand faster service, it needs better coordination. And if rival ports improve, Singapore cannot depend on reputation alone. The older terminals were powerful, but they were scattered. That meant containers, cranes, trucks, ships, and workers had to be managed across different locations. As cargo networks became more complex, Singapore needed one large system where berth planning, yard space, equipment, and automation could work together. There was also the land problem. Singapore is a small island, so land is never just land. The older city terminals sit close to valuable waterfront areas. By moving port operations to Tuas, Singapore can create a larger port in the west, while eventually opening up southern waterfront land for future development. The plan is to move container operations from Tanjong Pagar, Keppel, and Brani to Tuas by 2027, then consolidate Pasir Panjang at Tuas by the 2040s. This is why Tuas is both a port project and a city planning project. Tuas is Singapore's answer before the old system reaches its limit. Phase 1 alone is designed to have 21 deep water berths and a handling capacity of 20 million container units a year when fully operational in 2027. The first 2 berths began operating in December 2021, and more berths have opened in stages since then. Before Tuas could become a port, Singapore first had to make the land. This is one of the most important parts of the project. Tuas Port is not a normal expansion beside an old harbor. It is a new maritime platform created on the edge of a land-scarce country. Phase 1 began with reclamation. The seabed had to be prepared. New land had to be formed. The coastline had to be protected. And the terminal had to be built high enough to serve Singapore for decades. The first phase involved soil improvement work for 414 hectares of land, including 294 hectares of newly reclaimed land. It also required 221 concrete caissons, each about 10 stories tall and weighing around 15,000 tons. These caissons formed 8.6 kilometers of seawall. That seawall became the edge of the new port. Behind it, the reclaimed land could be prepared for yards, roads, cranes, utilities, control systems, and container movement. The sea was slowly turned into a working terminal. The port also had to be ready for future ships. Phase 1 includes deep water berths, and the seabed was deepened so larger vessels could call there. Tuas is being developed in phases because Singapore cannot pause its port economy while building the next one. The older terminals still have to operate. So Tuas is opening piece by piece while construction continues around it. That makes the project more difficult. The size of Tuas is important, but automation is what makes it different. A modern container port is a race against time. A ship arrives with thousands of containers across its deck. Each box has a destination, a schedule, a weight, and a chain of documents behind it. Some containers must be moved to another ship, some must go inland, some must wait in the yard until their next journey. If the quay slows down, the yard feels it. If the yard becomes crowded, cranes lose way. If trucks or vehicles wait too long, costs rise. A delay in one part of the terminal can spread across the whole port. Tuas is designed to reduce those weak points. The new port uses automated yard cranes, automated guided vehicles, and digital systems to move containers through the terminal. Current operational berths at Tuas already use electrified equipment, including quay cranes, yard cranes, and automated guided vehicles. In the older model, more work depended on human-driven vehicles and separate terminal operations. At Tuas, the goal is to make the port function as one coordinated system. Containers can be tracked, moved, stored, and transferred through a digital network. Automation also helps with safety. Container yards are demanding places. Heavy boxes move overhead. Large equipment operates close to people. By shifting more movement to automated cranes and driverless electric vehicles, the port can reduce some direct exposure to dangerous work areas. For a transshipment hub, Singapore's job is to move cargo between ships quickly. If Tuas can reduce delays and make vessel connections better, it will protect the business that made Singapore important in the first place. There is also a cleaner side to the plan. Ports use a lot of energy, and traditional yard vehicles can produce heavy emissions. Singapore says electrified port equipment at Tuas can reduce carbon emissions by about 50% compared with diesel prime movers. The Port of Tuas is a massive national project that centers around land, steel, software, and water. Singapore is betting that sea trade will remain central to the world economy. More than 80% of global trade in goods by volume moves by sea, so ports remain critical to how the world works. But trade is no longer stable in the way it once seemed. Shipping routes face pressure from conflict, climate problems, congestion, and changing supply chains. When routes are disrupted, major hubs like Singapore feel the impact. The country already plays a major role in containers, transshipment, bunkering, ship services, logistics, finance, and maritime support. In 2024, Singapore also reached record marine fuel sales of 54.92 million metric tons, showing how important it remains as a refueling hub. Ships come to Singapore to unload cargo for fuel, supplies, repairs, crew services, and access to one of the most connected maritime networks in the world. If Singapore loses its port advantage, the effect would reach far beyond the docks. That is why the Tuas project has to work. At full build-out, the port will cover about 1,337 hectares, about 3,300 football fields. It will have 66 berths stretching across 26 kilometers and a planned annual capacity of 65 million standard container units by 2040. But can a small island stay powerful by building the port of the future before the future fully arrives?